Good evening. Thanks for joining us here at Amherst Media. My name is Wendy Bloomenthal, and I'm honored tonight to bring to you the women of the Women's Caucus for Art Pioneer Valley chapter. Last month, if you missed it, we had the president and co-founder and vice president, Rockley Wolf and Pragya Jain, join us to talk a little bit about the organization and the local chapter. Tonight, we're blessed that the same group of women are bringing their exhibit to Amherst Media for the next 2 months, beginning September 1st, which was yesterday, with our reception this evening going through the end of October. And the theme of this show, this exhibit, is powerful and meaningful to myself, I think the women that are involved, and many of you at home. And the theme is on honoring and acknowledging breast cancer awareness, domestic violence awareness, and Hispanic Heritage Awareness Months. And talking about and understanding through the works of art the harm caused by all types of abusive behavior, the prevalency of cancer, specifically breast cancer, and how women overcome unfathomable barriers to achieve remarkable milestones in their lives. So tonight I want to turn briefly to Rockley Wolf and Sandy Streeter, who are two artists joining us in this show tonight, to talk a little bit about how we've come to this exhibit this evening before we move into audience conversation and audience dialogue and questions. So either one of you want to begin? Rockley, put you on the spot?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you at ACTV for inviting us.
Absolutely.
Number one, we would not be doing this show if it had not been for you guys inviting us to do it. And it's an honor to do it, especially when you talked about the importance, because we were just coming, out of our last show. But because of the importance of the theme of breast cancer awareness and domestic violence awareness, as well as Hispanic heritage, I really felt motivated and moved to go ahead and get it done. Because a lot of times as artists, we have to work under pressure anyway. And then we had to come with a theme, because it was like, all right, here's this topic, but it's pretty broad as far as how are we going to name it. So, I was speaking with a couple of the members, and then, I was talking with Pragya on the phone, and we were throwing out names and words that would flow with this. And she said evidence, and I said evidence, and and she was going down a list of echoes. I said echoes, and I said, hey, what about echoes and evidence? It's like echoes, it's why, and then explaining why, because echoes, it's like they reverberate into the future, like a sound out, to represent the voices of those women who, from the past, are still crying out, in pain through the experiences that they've had, through domestic violence, as well as through breast cancer, going through the treatment and the whole series of tests and everything you have to go through is very trying. And then, of course, Hispanic heritage. And so when I presented the theme to the members, based on what we had talked about in what your requests were, I requested that they write an artist statement about the work and why that work reflected the theme.
Mm-hmm. And I would add that you guys really pulled this together as a group in about 2 weeks, from the point of our conversation to developing a theme, to call out for artists, to getting pieces that resonated with the theme.
Right.
And it's, some may think, not an easy theme to fit into, and what that mixture is like. And we talked about combining Hispanic heritage with domestic violence awareness and breast cancer awareness, and how the commonalities we talked about were just some. They're certainly not exhaustive or exclusive of any other, but really about identity in each of those, whether you are a person of Hispanic heritage, or you are a survivor of domestic violence, or breast cancer, and the stories that live within you and all of those affected by those topics, those issues, those identities. And and the power that you guys bring to this as artists to either tell your own stories in those themes through your art, or maybe help empower other people or resonate and sit with other people, make people think. There's all of that. So I'm honored to have you all here, and we thank you. And we're lucky that we get to sit with this on our work walls for the next 2 months. So thank you for that as well. Sandy, do you want to spend a minute or so talking a little bit about your work and the idea of this theme and what the implications are?
I had to go back a ways in my work to find something that resonated with the show, and it was work that I'd almost forgotten about because I feel like I've resolved a lot of the issues, although every now and then something comes up to kick you in the pants, you know. So my older work was leading up to what I do now mostly is work to express the need for Earth to be protected and the violence we do to Earth all the time in the guise of advancement and monetary affluence and all that is really so harmful to the Earth. And if the Earth is our mother, then it's like all the women that inhabit Earth should be protected too. And I was fortunate not to experience physical abuse or sexual abuse, but the experience of being emotionally kind of ignored by one parent, it wasn't both my parents, but it left me feeling that I wasn't a worthy person. And no matter what I did and how good it was, I didn't feel it was worth being put out there. So WCA has helped me with that a lot. I'm not a very good public speaker.
You're doing a pretty darn good job right now.
Thank you. So, you know, I just feel more empowered now, having met all the other artists, and it's a relief and a release of some kind when someone you know who knows about art tells you things about your work. You know, my husband's always been very supportive, and he's a wonderful man. But I don't really feel like he knows, you know, enough about art to tell me what's good and what's bad, or not so good. So that's about how I got here.
That's phenomenal. I'm almost at a loss for words. It sounds like this has been cathartic in so many ways, but you've found this sisterhood, truly, not to be cliche, but this sisterhood of community to embrace yourself in, and not only feel relief and release, but I'm guessing, and when we get to talk to your fellow colleagues, I bet you'll hear that you've empowered them as well. It's not just about them cocooning you, which is beautiful in and of itself, but I've only met you yesterday and through yesterday and interactions today, and then this, I already feel like a stronger woman by knowing you as another woman. So thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So on that beautiful note, if we could take a minute to turn over to our audience and our artists, our artists that are in the house tonight, and we're really fortunate.
This has been this show, and gathering together with this wonderful group of women has been a wonderful experience for me. I see myself at nearly 60 years old as being an emerging artist. I have only really been painting for a couple years now, so having this public exposure is very new for me, and really exciting. The series that my paintings have come from, the Spirit Dancer series, kind of bubbled up. It has been bubbling up in me for a very long time, and it's looking at the stages of a woman's life as I enter the later stages, and looking at the interdependence of women as we go through the many challenges in our lives, and how the strength of women together allows us to be both independent and interdependent.
Absolutely.
And do it with grace.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me is a really exciting project. This particular show has meaning for me. My mom died of breast cancer when she was very young, and so raising money and promoting breast cancer awareness has always been very important to me. I have 2 sisters, and we have done several of the 2 and 3 day walks to raise money for breast cancer, and those are incredibly powerful experiences. And my day job, if you will, is working in the human services field, and I have worked with a lot of women who are survivors of breast cancer. I mean domestic violence and breast cancer, but particularly domestic violence. So the themes pulled together for me have been very meaningful, and continuing the series that I have been working on, I did pieces specifically for this show that pulled together domestic violence and breast cancer, and also the idea that both of those things are not restricted to one group of women. Both domestic violence and breast cancer affect women of all races and ages and education and life experiences, and that in itself is a very important statement. And for me, having the opportunity to sit and talk with other women artists has been wonderful, because, as I said, this is something fairly new to me, and I've been pretty isolated sitting in my little studio by myself, teaching myself a great deal. And this sisterhood, as you put it, is just wonderful for me. It's been a great experience.
That's fantastic.
I'm Nina, and I just joined the group as well, and also I'm looking for community instead of isolation in my studio, and particularly with my sisters, my fellow artists. And when I saw the call for this show, I knew I had a piece that would really fit in, and I was so glad to find the perfect format to share this piece in. What I have is, I think, such evidence of such willful and terrible ignorance and stubbornness that it really pissed me off when I first even saw this piece of metal in the scrap heap, because it's the back of a wood stove, and someone has for months and years probably been shoving in pieces of wood that are way too long for the size of this stove. I mean, this is not just one season or a few logs. This is just like over and over again. It's ridiculous, because the back of this wood stove is totally blown out and cracked. And there was something very female about that experience of being battered, and the hole in the back of the stove has an opening that is, the openness and the willing to risk love and the vulnerability of what I identify with as a female. And the shape in the back that it was torn from is sort of in the shape of a house. And I had recently gotten divorced and having children, and the thoughts of the broken home were also in my consciousness. So this medal just really spoke to me, as well as making me angry at the evidence of that will for ignorance that I just despise so much. And so I took it home and I worked on it, and at the time I was kind of fascinated with driveway crack sealer. It was kind of asphalty, gritty material, and so I put that on there, and for contrast there's some gold leaf on there, and then I put the staff on it, which actually was made by one of my sons, because I needed some hope, and like a staff is a way out, it's a tool, it's something that we fashion that you're walking forward, you're journeying out with a staff. You need something to hold on to. And so those two things, I think it finds its own balance somewhere with these found objects speaking for the story. And that's about it.
That's a lot.
It's a beautiful
This is
piece.
amazing. Amazing.
I just want to say something that I had a little twist on breast cancer awareness, and that is the word iatrogenic, which means doctor-induced illness. And I wanted some awareness for this phenomenon that occurs, because it just is, we trust our physicians so much, and we really have to be proactive for ourselves. So that's what my breast cancer piece is about.
Thank you. And Rhoda, you have, I'm learning over the course of time, your sacred space of your home really is a compilation of your work over the years, both inside and out.
Yeah, I can't bear to store my work after I put so much labor. It's labor intensive, so I created kind of a museum of, and actually we have a darkroom. My husband has his work up too, so.
Nice.
But because I live in the woods, I don't have to worry about it being stolen. Or
Well, we'll look forward to maybe getting a special interview with your home someday that you've made an entire art
there's
collection.
a whole museum in Baltimore, Maryland, called the American Visionary Art Museum, and it's about artists who
Nice.
create this sacred space outside and inside.
Nice.
So,
I'm thrilled that you're a part of this show. Thank you.
thank you.
Does any other artists want to talk, or are there particular questions? Or?
Does anyone have a question? Do you have a question? I do have a question. I wanted to ask you more about your fabric, because I'm intrigued by it. The way you use it, and where you get it, and how you decide how to weave it and sew it.
Oh, thank you. I've kept my old clothes, and so it's actually called recycled couture, and I believe that artists should do everything. I make jewelry, I make installations, and so I just go to my closet and I just redesign some old clothes I have. A lot of artists go to a recycle store or a secondhand store and they buy goods, but
Do you do knitting and crocheting on the pieces?
I do crocheting and sewing, and
Right.
I have so many fiber materials
Yeah.
that I don't even have to buy anything. So, and beads and whatnot, collection, because I'm going to be 71 in October, so I've got quite a collection of fabric and materials.
I love the colors too.
Thank you.
All right, so this, we've touched on this, and I'm just so happy, Wendy, that you gave us the opportunity to be active with our art, to be artists and activists together, and I love listening to Sandy, because it's activism. It's starting with her personal, and it branches out, and it's so wonderful for us to get to meet and be together and know the personal stories and express ourselves with our own story and share them. And it's been a wonderful opportunity. It's so nice because we get to know each other face to face, and we know each other through the work. Yeah. And it's just a powerful way to know other women. And it's just a gift. And all of us have the gift that we know how to express ourselves. And it's a gift when we share and know each other that way. And I thank you for sort of pushing us along to an activist vein, because it's just so important. It's so important to the WCA, and I know it's really important to a lot of members here. So thank you so much for that.
I mean, you're very welcome, and I think we've given you a platform, but you're all already activists.
Right.
I mean, there is not a story that can be told here that doesn't speak to your own activism, starting internally,
Right.
externally, how you proceed down that path. I'm thrilled that we have this resource here, wink, wink, in the community that can be a platform for this kind of work on really important topics and issues. It's a must, and may we never lose it.
My piece is basically, it's called Elements of Life. It's, if you look at it, you'll be like, how does this fit? How does it fit? But I did a lot of thinking. It was very hard for me to fit into this show because my work is very happy. It's very bright. It's very colorful. I try to not do stuff which will make you go, oh, or, which will make you upset or bring something, from deep inside out that would really stay with you. I try to make it very positive, and that's what I work on. So for this show, I did a little thinking, and I said, well, humans knew what to do when they evolved. They knew how to use fire. They knew what to do with water. They knew, I'm thirsty, I'll drink water. They knew that we can grow in the soil and get food. And air is what we breathe, and if we don't breathe, we're gonna die. But the sad part is that humans also discovered through the course of time that they can destruct and destroy with these elements, that they can suffocate and kill a girl child because they don't want a girl child, because I come from India, and a lot of the rural area is they just think that a girl child is a burden, and she's basically going to grow up and they're going to have to get her married, and that's it. That's why she's born, and they just kill her, and they do that by drowning her, or it upsets me just talking about it. And the other thing was fire. I worked in a piece called Fire, and the fire was because they would. The widowed women, this was back, it started in 400 AD, but it actually went on till 1820s, and that's when it was banned by the government. But they would make the widows jump into the fire and kill themselves because they said there's no reason for you to live because your husband died. It just outrages me, and just to have to think about it was so upsetting. And I said, this is what I'm going to do, because I guess this is the closest I could get to deal with something like this. Mm-hmm. I don't if I'd gone any further, I guess it would evoke some very strange emotions in me, which I wouldn't have been able to handle. So this was my way of dealing with this theme, and the story that goes with it is actually really sad, but when you look at my piece, it's not. And that's kind of what I was aiming at. But it was very, I felt like I grew up while doing this, the soul searching, and that why does this happen? Why do people do this? What did they get out of it? We nurture each other, but we also destroy each other. And it's just the brutal fact of life. Mm-hmm. And it's just something that's very hard to deal with.
Yeah, you did a great job with it, and you can feel the pull in it. Like I've told you, it's a really expanding piece for you, and visually it's meeting these, the conflicting powers of elements. Like you just do a great job with it.
Thank you. I tried.
Sandy, I wanted to tell you that it's just so nice. We all know, we've gotten to know Sandy from her clay work, which is lovely, and we all adore it. And it's so nice for the show to see that she expanded to some new mediums. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful. And I think it's wonderful because you can see the connection, and it just expands, our understanding of you. And I know it's been great for you to share them with us. And like you said, you're revisiting some things that you hadn't spent time with. Mm-hmm. And it's nice, and you're aware of art that way, as when you make a piece, it's you kind of take it off of yourself in a certain way. Like it's a release, and it's, you push it away, and it's there, and they're still there in you, just as it's all still there in the work that you made, and it's, anyways.
Thank you.
I'll wait.
Anyone?
Any questions? Comments?
Okay, I guess it's now. I don't qualify for this
Yes, you do.
committee,
Yes, you do.
but as a member of the ACTV board and a member of this community, I'm just delighted that the work we do to create a space for people to have a voice, whether it's speaking, telling a story, challenging the Jim Crow or whatever we deal with in our lifetime, but to have the artists understand that not only do they need to have the right to express themselves, but they need the space and the encouragement to share it with the community. I am an artist, but I've become an artist of working with people. I started out with a scholarship at the Brooklyn Museum Art School, and my first piece of work was a stone piece about a sharecropper, a woman who was raped by a white farmer, and her son came to her rescue, and the both of them wound up in jail. And the piece I did was showing the mother attempting to feed a baby, but there was no baby in her arms. And the whole point was that tell the story of injustice in America. And I've always gone back to that, but I find I have to do something beyond the art level. So I think I express myself artistically with people in many other ways, and so I'm delighted to be here.
You know, we interviewed a guest, well, I should not say we, Isaac interviewed a guest on his show Conversations in the last couple weeks, Bill Newman from the NAACP, and he made a comment that stuck. ACLU, I'm so sorry. He made a comment that has stuck with me in so many different areas of my life in the last couple weeks, and that is challenging people to not simply be a bystander. And just that by itself, he made that comment in the context of the situation with the mosque's requisition that's being made at Ground Zero in New York. Yeah. But it really resonates on so many different levels, and I think of that in just sitting with you guys this evening about your art, the stories, the issues we're all here to embrace and discuss and honor and remember and celebrate and empower. And that is about activism and not just not being a bystander. And some people are really good at articulating that with other people, and then there's you guys who have this gift of putting that out in such a different, powerful form, and it's phenomenal. So thanks for not being bystanders.
Thanks for giving us the chance.
Yes.
I'm not an artist, although I did take a lot of art lessons, and I would like to have been an artist. And what I wanted to ask all you artists is, do you feel like you had this kernel of creativity and artistic ability when you were very young? Did you sense that as a young child?
I did. Yeah, I think a lot. I mean, I shouldn't speak for anyone else, but for me, yeah, it was something that it was always who I was. It was always a part of me. I can remember when I was 7, bringing a little Picasso book to bed. Like, it was just, and my family wasn't into art, and it's just something that, I migrated towards. And I think that's true with a lot of people. I want to share.
Actually, I had an interesting experience. I was 14, and I felt like I couldn't do academics, and so I went to a vocational high school in New York and studied interior design at 14. And then recently I found out that I have this strange learning disability where my eyes focus intermittently. So I can't tell you, I mean, I was one of the class artists, but maybe through inability in other directions, I always thought of myself doing artwork.
I was a good student to begin with, and then I just wasn't interested in studying. I mean, I obviously graduated and everything, but my mom kind of noticed that, I was more inclined towards the arts. I wanted to do commerce. I wanted to study business because I come from a business family, and that's what everybody did. And I actually fought with my mom because I said, "What, do you think I'm not smart enough to do business?" And she said, "No, sweetie, you're smarter than them because you're going to be an artist and you're going to do bigger things." And I was actually mad at her for a long time because I was like, "You don't get me." But she got me. She's the only one who actually did get me. And she said, "No, you're going to go to art school and this is what you're going to do." And she put me in all these classes where I, trained and honed my skills. And I'm just so grateful to her for that.
It's reverse. It's a reverse kind of attitude that mothers, they would want you to make a living and go to business school. So she really had some vision. Your mother did.
She did. She's always been artistic too, and she just knew. I never knew. She knew. Yeah.
For me, I think it was really very different. I've never seen myself as an artist per se. My mother was a painter. I started 20 years or so ago designing jewelry. And for me, it was sort of like occupational therapy after a divorce. And it was, so the creative piece of me started coming out, and I had done some photography when I was younger. But the painting and the art as it's coming out now, as I said earlier, is really a very new thing for me. It's only within the past couple years that I've been painting. And I've had very little formal training. I've taken a couple classes at Holyoke Community College, and that's it in terms of formal training. Wow. My mother-in-law is an amazing artist, and she used to live in New York, and every time we went down there, she'd haul us off to the museums in the city, which was a lovely experience. But for me, it's certainly not something that has been part of my life forever, and I'm kind of amazed and surprised by its appearance in my life, and I think it's sort of most of my work is not representational. It's much more abstract, and for me it's a way for a lifetime of emotions to find their way out.
I guess my expression of art when I was a kid was portrayed through dolls and doll houses. I was making whole worlds, writing little books for the dolls. We weren't allowed to have Barbies, so we had these other little dime store dolls, and we would make half of them into, this is my sister and me, that's the we men, by filing off the breasts on the and the hairdos that were molded into these little plastic things, and using hot wire to, maybe I shouldn't talk about that. But so we had our own little worlds and bookcases, and then I got old enough to use power tools, making a plywood one, and making the roof out of sandpaper, shingles, and stuff like that. So maybe there's sort of a way of controlling a part of a world, and since then I see, that art is sort of a continuum with everything that we do, including work. Art really means things that are put together well. So there is an art to everything we do, cooking, and it's just one whole mishmash of just making stuff and loving to make things and put things together.
To call it your own.
Yes, it's your signature. Yeah, exactly.
I'd just like to say that there are plenty of artists that started very late in life. And there's so many books about them, artists that and particularly women artists. So if you're thinking of yourself, it's never too late. Yeah, you can do a lot of research on that, and it's very inspirational, actually.
It may speak as well to, at different stages of life, talking about being an emerging artist. But what I'm hearing with all you guys is this inhibition, and whether you find that at a young age or middle age or older age, it's the ability to express. And you've done that unencumbered of worrying about it needs to look a certain way. You're not doing it for anybody else. Yet when you do it, it speaks to many other people. It speaks to many topics. It speaks to many issues. It speaks to many hearts. And I have often gotten quite anxious when I've been asked to even just doodle, because I have this inhibition about there's a right way and a wrong way. And through the beauty of being a mother now and having a 2.5-year-old daughter, I feel it's my responsibility to allow her that freedom and teach her and model that for her. And so I agree, Cynthia, it's never too late to be an artist, and maybe I'll become an artist. And WCA is taking new members, so you could join. And I mean that sincerely. We're laughing, but I mean that sincerely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to ask briefly if, Rockley, you specifically, we've touched a lot on the theme tonight of breast cancer and domestic violence, and there are numerous atrocities that we place against Mother Earth, against ourselves. And some could argue that breast cancer is one of them. You could argue that it's medical induced or what have you. I think you have a piece in this particular show, Ni Una Mas, that speaks to a little bit that same idea, but a little different slant. And I would love it if you could, if I'm not asking too much, if you could speak to that as an artist, as a woman, and as a mother.
Right. The piece means Ni Una Mas is a Spanish translation. Well, it's the English translation meaning not one more. This particular altar that I created, installation piece, was in honor of the murdered women of Juarez, Mexico, where this has been going on since 1993, where I don't even know where they are at this point. When I was doing research, I did research on this for about 2 weeks, and I had to stop after 2 or 3 hours because every time I read about one more girl, because most of the victims are between the ages of 17 and 24. It was like a deeper, like a knife in my heart that just kept going deeper and deeper. And before I started working as a professional artist, I have been the director of numerous social service programs, and I have witnessed a great deal. And many of those who do that kind of work, like Jackie, you know that at some point you have to decide if it's time to stop. And for me, it was not, I didn't want to stop with helping, but I had to move away from the fire. So the art was another form of me helping and working, even though I'd been a performance artist for years. And a lot of the performance work that I had written focused on these issues through solo performances as well as working with other artists. But I had to step back from all of that when I went into the MFA program. And it was in the MFA program, it was the Women's Spirituality MA program. Both of them were in San Francisco out of New College of California. And in both of those programs, I met the most incredible women, and we're still in contact, who are my classmates, that shared so much, and these women's experiences were absolutely amazing. And one of them was Sylvia Pare, who is from Mexico. And right toward the end of graduation, she asked us if we would participate in her installation piece, which was called The Dead Women of Juarez, but it was part of the Soma Arts Gallery in San Francisco's exhibit for the Day of the Dead. And so we said, sure. And we went over and, started looking at the cubicle space where the exhibit was going to be. And we came back the next day. And when we came back the next day, this white space, which was a cube, with a plain wall, had red handprints going all the way from from the top to the bottom with red paint dripping from each hand. And I said, Sylvia, and I said, listen, you're asking us to do something, but I need to do some research, or can you tell us? So she gave us a little bit of information, and I went and did the research on my own, and it was like, oh my God. So we didn't have a lot of time to do a lot of thinking. We had to get in there and put the installation together. So the piece that, the little clay figure that I have inside the altar box was in that exhibit. And it was originally called the Spirit of the Vagina. And I changed the name to the Holy of Holies. And I made that because when I was doing the research, it reminded me how sacred women are, how sacred the womb is. There would be no life on this planet without the feminine. And helping me to become even more aware of the honoring of that, and working with women to help women to understand that they are important, that they are sacred, and the importance of us working together and honoring each other and moving away from what society has projected onto us and how we treat each other. And so when I had to go into deep thought while trying to put all of the show together at the same time, because usually the way I work, and especially on serious themes such as this, is that I shut down for a while. I shut down for 2 weeks. I don't talk to anybody. I don't answer my phone. I don't talk to anyone. And it was very difficult for me to do this time because I had to, I had to think about the other women and the show and all the details of it. At the same time, my heart was breaking because I went into deeper research about what happened. And especially, there was one in particular. I was up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning. I just had to stop and cry because it was one of the girls, Rizia, who was 24 years old, and she left to take her baby to the doctor, to the clinic with an eye infection. And the baby was like, she was 18, and the baby was 24 days old. And so when I looked at the pictures, they had the little baby shoes in the pictures instead of the mother's face. I just started crying. I just said, I have to put the computer down, and I have to go over here and sit down, and I have to regroup. And so as I created, I said, I don't want to just make something that looks cute, but I also did not want to focus on the gruesomeness of it, because these young girls were at this stage, they said there was 400, but I read another report that said there's more like 3,000. There are 400 that they have been able to identify. The rest of them, they haven't been able to find. And they were these maquildora, I think that's how I pronounce it. Anybody in the house that's Spanish, let me know. But they worked in United States factories like Alcoa and General Electric for $55 a week. So these young girls would get up in the morning and get on a bus and go across town to these jobs. If they were 3 minutes late, they were sent home. So if it's 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, it's still dark, they've got to find their way back home. That's how a lot of them came up missing. And not only were they brutally raped, they were murdered. Some of them, there were glass bottles that were stuck in their vaginas. There were their arms disfigured. They were thrown into the deserts or into the main streets. So when I saw the letters that the mothers had written, that also was, they weren't, the letters weren't about anger. The letters were about how much these mothers missed their daughters and how beautiful they were. Many of them were young virgins. Like, the youngest one was 10 years old, a student, and just disappeared. So I thought about all the colors. I thought about domestic violence colors, purple, and I thought about I wanted to honor them, their beauty and their innocence. So I found little pictures of them, and I made little pieces that look like church windows, and I put their pictures on each side, and then, you know, put a little candle there and flowers and statements so that people would be aware, because I know some people are aware, some people were not. And when I finally completed it, like a lot of work, you can't put the work down until the work tells you it's finished.
Finished with
I
you.
don't care what you do, you know, you have that vibe comes over you to let you know that the work is finished. And I set it down, and I moved away from it, and I looked at it, and I just cried. I just cried, and I said, I hope that wherever you all are, that you're in a place of safety and love, and honoring your presence of when you were here to make the world aware. This has to stop. It has to stop. And that's what I am. I'm an art activist. My focus is on issues that concern not only women, but the injustices in the world. And sometimes the work is pretty and sometimes it isn't. But I'm always thinking about the person who's looking at the work. How is it going to affect them? So I'm not into shock art, but I want them to, it's to invoke critical thinking. And that's part of what my artist statement is that my work is to invoke critical thinking. So.
I read in a couple of the artist statements, Lisa, yours in particular, about a bit of a reticence in giving an artist statement or an interpretation of your work for not wanting to interpret that for the viewer. And I so respect that, because it is open. I mean, there are some concrete things that we all look at certain things and you get a gist of it, but all of your pieces speak to each viewer in common ways, but in very unique ways at the same time. And I think, again, you've hit on that art as activism, art as social change, art as bringing about awareness and conversation, and that we've spent a lot of time in the last month here at Amherst Media talking about the importance of art as not being always warm and fuzzy, but that it sometimes makes us uncomfortable in a variety of ways, physiologically, mentally, spiritually, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's we as Amherst Media don't put it up with malice, but that it's done to make us think and to not be complacent about issues, the very same issues we're here discussing. So that brings me to thinking, I didn't intend this, but about your pieces as well. And I heard one of your colleagues mention earlier it was a viewer and a person coming through the gallery tonight talked about feeling that male artists just don't get the woman body. And I'm curious, I mean, I could give more of that dialogue, but I'm curious what you think about that, because you've represented the female body in the beautiful, artistic manner in which we exist, and that I hope my little girl grows up just knowing inherently. But there's no hiding in your piece. All of our pieces and curves and everything are there. And I wish you could have heard that compliment, because I heard that on your behalf as a compliment, that you really essentially got the woman body. And I said, of course, she's a woman.
Yes. Yes. I think I like to put a softness in my work and a fluidity of of media that will flow and sort of make its own statement. And then I find the picture in there and define the lines somewhat more than just the flowing statement made, but if that makes sense. But I do like to work that way, and I think part of it is that a woman naturally has a better feel for the woman's body, and perhaps the male image is stilted by their upbringing or their feelings towards women, or I don't know. It's new for me to be talking about these pieces because a lot of what I've done has been more activist. I belong to anti-nuclear groups, and I feel like even the government abuses us, not just women, but all people, you know, like I live very close to a nuclear reactor, and every day I get up and think about it. I think, which way is the wind blowing? And my children, I kept my children in that town that's in the 10-mile radius. And so far, we've been blessed. But, you know, when people did studies about radiation being in low levels on rats, they found out it's the 13th generation of rats where the most problems come up. So what's awaiting us for cancers and the mixture of radiation and pesticides? What is that doing to us? And who's studying it? Is there anyone? So that's another form of abuse in my head, that I had to live my whole life near that reactor. And I was born in 1942, and so all my very young years was about war. And when I was 3.5 or so, my father came running in the house with a newspaper. They've dropped the bomb. They've dropped the bomb. Let's, the war's over. And God, he scared me to death. I didn't know what was going on. And the more I found out about the bomb, the more I thought, God, this is crazy. Crazy. And then we all know what's happened after that,
And you're using those stories, both personal and global. It sounds like it's coming out in your current art.
Yes.
And that you speak of that with great integrity. I see the work that you have in this current exhibit. I just want a little nudge to challenge you that it is also very much activism. You may be doing nuclear reaction activism right now, but the work that's up on the walls here is nothing less than activism. It may have a different thread to it, but
isn't it amazing how it all interweaves? Like I always think of the Chief Seattle's prayer about the web and how we are all connected. And the more art I do and the more people I meet, the more I see that's so true.
Yeah. Well, that's a great note for us to wrap up tonight on, actually, because I think that, we talked about how we got here as far as WCA and Amherst Media. Why are we talking tonight? Why this theme? And I think we honed in on a few things, that Amherst Media is really grassroots political social activism. It's about true democracy. It's about free speech. It's about all those things that can be cliche and buzzwordy, but they're so not at the same time. We talk about 20 years of conversations series. We talk about people being able to express themselves and tell their stories through a variety of mediums. We talk about our responsibility as women with each other and with the rest of the world. We talk about being moms. I can't resonate a more bigger responsibility I feel on this planet as being a mom.
Yes.
And these particular issues that this exhibit about being 3 issues that are not easy to sit with, and that can leave us feeling somewhat hopeless or diminished hope. But I think also then I don't mean to be Pollyanna-ish, but this collective, and I mentioned this in last month's interview, the fact that you guys have chosen to not just belong to any collective, it's not just the women's book club that meets on Wednesdays. You've chosen to take part in Women's Caucus for Art, which has that inherent larger mission to it. And so I don't mean to be redundant, but you have made, consciously or unconsciously, a choice to take part in the responsibility of furthering and challenging and bringing to awareness conversations about equity and bringing to awareness willful ignorance and horrible atrocities, and empowering people to tell those stories, because through that is how we move to finding more hope and to creating change. Change is a hard word, and a lot of people don't like it. It's tough.
Right, and I would just like to say, I just recently received the presidential updates, and she had to change the meeting that we were going to have September the 12th to October the 24th. But WCA, National WCA, is moving more in that direction. More of the art that is coming out of the chapters is focused more on artivism and issues that concern the injustices that are in the world, specifically that relate to women and girls, and that they are actively pursuing an international committee. Well, they have an international committee, but creating chapters in other parts and connecting. There already are several women who are, coming in from Europe, but they're looking at actively encouraging women that are in Korea. I know they've been there, China, Africa, Mexico, and also
what term
India.
did you call that? Artivism?
Artivism.
Artivism.
That's one of the terms that came out, when I was in graduate school. That
Beautiful.
we were talking about where's your focus and where are you going.
Well, amen. I
Maybe
see you guys being able to be powerful, again, that globally, the connection with the United Nations, but then locally. I mean, I think about how many how many programs are being cut in schools and how valuable art is. I mean, yeah, there's the bumper sticker, art saves lives, but this is real. This is the sisterhood. You guys have it. You have it going on. So kudos to you. I'm honored to know you. Thank you for joining us tonight. And come back next month for more art talk after the Amherst Art Walk. Thank you.